Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blind Buys, a brand new podcast where we watch and discuss movies we've bought sight unseen. I'm Josh, and with me, as always, is my collector in crime, Jesse.
Hey, everybody. And for this, our first episode, Josh's pick was Cameron Crowe's Almost Famous. So excited to talk about this movie later on in the hour. But first, how about we sort of get caught up with what we've been up to recently, what's been good with movies, what we've been watching. So, Josh, how did you sort of end your movie year of 2025 and begin 2026?
You know, with the Christmas season rolling around, there are always a couple movies I try to hit, favorite rewatches of mine. Holdovers has been a big one ever since that came out. Shout Factory put out the 4K of that, I think maybe a year and a half ago or something along those lines. Pretty much every year since that has come out, it's been a Christmas watch for me. I watched Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 over the Christmas season as well. I watched the first film in that franchise last Christmas, so I thought, you know, why not? And the good thing is I didn't have to remember anything that happened in the first film because Part 2 is, 60% rehashing the original, playing, shot for shot repeating of the original film. So didn't have to remember anything that happened, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I've heard that about. I've seen the first one and had a great time with it, but I haven't caught up with any of the others yet. That's a fun holiday horror film for sure. Yeah, yep. In that vein, I watched Jack Frost for the first time. Less recommended perhaps than Silent Night, Deadly Night. But yeah, Jack Frost, a movie that I watched.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know about what Christmas movies you guys maybe watch in your family, but my wife and I tend to watch, the Santa Claus trilogy every year. That's big in my house. Muppet Christmas Carol every Christmas on the 25th. That was big in my family growing up. So did that again this year. Meet Me in St. Louis has been a big one for me the last couple of years. Judy Garland musical, which is not completely about Christmas, but is known for that famous scene where Judy Garland sings "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas," and it breaks my heart every time. So watch that again this year. What about y'all?
Yeah, definitely wrapped up the year with some fun holiday watches that sort of ran the gamut between. I kind of always like to watch some version of A Christmas Carol, often one that I haven't seen. So this year it was the 1951 version with Alistair Sims. Yeah, just one of the real classic ones that I hadn't seen before and had a great time with that. And yeah, Rudolph's Shiny New Year, which is one of the Rankin and Bass shorts. I watched that with my kids. We actually potty trained my son to that movie 5 years ago. We were stuck inside during COVID and we put that movie on a whole bunch. So it was fun to revisit that with him and see what he remembered. A Smoky Mountain Christmas, which is a Dolly Parton sort of like TV movie special that also has like a woodland witch and she becomes like a surrogate mother to this group of wild kids living in like the wilds of Tennessee. And this was one that I had seen promos for on the Disney Channel all the time, like when I was a kid, and I'd never seen it. Yeah. It was good. It was a lot of fun. Not at all what I expected, but a great watch. And that was sort of like classic era Dolly Parton. It's like 1986. Yeah, so she is in top form as she has ever been. So that was great.
Yeah.
But then since then, I've sort of gone into like, I guess 2025 award season prestige fair catch up mode. So I went on a bit of a run. My wife and I, we had my father-in-law was in town for 3 weeks. So we actually got some date nights in, which was great. We saw Marty Supreme.
Yes.
And we saw No Other Choice, and I caught up with Begonia also. It's there's some really great movies came out in 2025, and excited for more people to get to see them. And Begonia is already out on 4K. It's crazy how short the window is for these things these days with releases. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff and a lot of great movies.
I did definitely get a chance to check out Marty Supreme. In fact, my wife and I went to go check it out three or 4 days ago, and I was really kind of blown away by it. I've heard like these hyperbolic takes from everyone, calling this like a generational classic or something like that. I'm not 100% sure if it's gonna get there, but I had a really, really awesome time watching it, and just kind of getting caught up in the chaos with such like a character that you know you probably shouldn't like, but you do anyway, and that really appeals to me. So I enjoyed Marty Supreme a lot.
Yeah, it was sort of like an Uncut Gems light, not in terms of anxiety, but in terms of like more lighthearted, I guess is the way to, maybe a better way to put it. And yeah, more of a guy you kind of want to root for. But even though many of the things he does are indefensible, he like kind of believes in himself and breaks through so many walls just with that superpower that by the end you're kind of swept up in like what he's doing and what he's trying to achieve. Yeah, I had a great time. It was very funny. There were a lot of people. It was a great movie to see in a theater with people because there was lots of laughs and gasps at just some of the wacky situations that
Yeah.
Marty gets himself into. So yeah. I look forward to. I'll probably revisit that one for sure.
We are a big Shark Tank family. Shark Tank is on all the time in our house. And so I knew seeing Kevin O'Leary in a movie, like acting kind of like as a larger than life version of, the type of person and entrepreneur he probably is in real life. I knew that was going to be kind of wild, and I was afraid it was going to take me out of the movie, but he like far exceeded my expectations. He was going toe to toe with Timothy in every scene, and even like kind of like just blowing him out of the water with his like pompous, like abrasive, entrepreneurial like nature, and bringing that to that kind of hustling energy that Timothy brings to the role was just chef's kiss to me. That I thought it was incredible.
Yeah, I don't watch Shark Tank really, but I knew I had seen his face, and I was blown away by how good he was in the movie. And then never have I had such a swing from a highs to lows from being so taken with his performance and then reading about who he is as a person and be like, oh, he's kind of awful.
Yeah,
But he was
that's
really
the
good.
problem.
They cast him really well. He was. It's maybe he's not acting, but no, he was very good in it. He's definitely a big part of why the movie works. Beyond Timothy Chalamet, yeah, Odessa Zion, I believe that's how her name is, also great. Yeah, just and so many incredible faces. I mean, freaking Abel Ferreira. I mean, it was it was just a parade of people like Penn Jillette, barely recognizable.
I did not know that was him until I was listening to, I think it was The Big Picture talking about it, and they were like, yeah, that's like the Penn. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was.
I clocked his name. I didn't know I knew Abel Ferreira was going to be in it, but I clocked his name in the credits, in the opening credits. And then I think when they went back the second time, I was like, oh my God, that's him. I won't get into, how or why he's in there, but he's in there. Yep. Marty Supreme, lots of fun.
And then I've kind of started working through, every year I do the Criterion Challenge. That's kind of been a big thing over the last few years on Letterboxd, and the VHS Village, which is the 70mm podcast Discord. You can hear us talk about that and how Jesse and I met in our introductory episode. But this year I was able to kind of shoehorn in a lot of blind buy titles that I have here at home. So just over the past couple of days, I've been working through the Jacques Tati complete set that Criterion put out. I am 4 films in at this point, and he directed 6 features and plenty of shorts. They're all included in the Criterion box set. But what I'm discovering is that I'm just the biggest mark for this kind of comedy that Tati is exhibiting in all of his films, which is just, I've heard it described as gentle slapstick, and I think that's the perfect way to describe it. It's just goofy stuff happening, and then more goofy stuff happens. And you see the setup, you see that like, this is probably going to happen, but I'm not mad that I know it's going to happen because it's going to make me laugh. And then it makes me laugh. I've just been really enjoying going through his filmography and being able to cross off so many from my Criterion Challenge, right away at the first of the year.
Yeah, I love that's one of those, like, whenever people ask like, what's the sales coming up, what should I look into getting at? That's one that I always say, like the Tati set. Like, I feel like you could show those to children and they would think it's funny. Monsieur Hulot is such a funny character. He was like a trained mime, I think. He does so much just with his, with his body and the way he moves through a space and like increasingly incredible spaces as he moves through from,
Yes.
Mon Oncle and then into playtime, these environments that he builds for chaos to unfold within. Yeah, really awesome stuff. Yeah, those are great movies.
Anything else that you've been watching since the first of the year?
Did a fun double with Jay Carp, our friend Josh, other Josh from VHS Village, and Chris of Tears of the Black Tiger, which is this Thai sort of genre mashup between like Western and kind of like soap opera-y stuff with these incredible colors, and it's really also like quite violent, but it's got some of the most amazing colors I've seen in some time. We watched that and then Shoot 'Em Up, which is it's quite outrageous Clive Owen, Paul Giamatti movie from the mid-aughts that I've seen described as because Clive Owen eats a lot of carrots throughout the movie, as the what if Bugs Bunny was in like a ultra-violent, not quite James Bond, but something like that, or crime movie. Quite outrageous, but watching it with friends was fun. So yeah, that was a double feature we did and had a lot of fun with it. So yeah,
That's awesome.
That's what I've been up to. So a little bit of like highbrow, lowbrow, everything in between.
Yeah, I love it. That's kind of what you got to do in the weird time between Christmas and New Year's, and then getting back into the swing of things afterwards. It's the world is your oyster. You can watch whatever you want. Speaking of, I guess, watching whatever we want, there are a ton of physical media releases coming out within the next few weeks. At the time of this recording, it's first full week of January 2026. There's a lot out there to kind of see and hope for the year. The biggest thing that I've seen lately has been this announcement that Vinegar Syndrome is partnering with Warner Brothers to release nearly 40 titles. I saw that and I thought, what a great deal with, the merger happening allegedly between Warner Brothers and Netflix, that to have this outlet of catalog titles that I assume are going to be either major upgrades or first-time home video releases. I think this is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I think it might be a lot of first-time stuff because they mentioned TV movies, and Vinegar Syndrome just announced that new sublabel, Iconoscope. So I think a lot of what they're going to be getting is stuff that Warner's had no interest in putting out on physical, because like TV movies are one of those so many of those are just lost to time. So it's pretty cool that Vinegar Syndrome is going to get stuff. And I think it sounds like they got some other things to kind of sweeten the pot that they'll put out maybe either under mainline Vinegar Syndrome or some of the other sub-labels. But yeah, I think it's great news. Anything coming out of Warner Brothers, given what's going on with the potential merger, is good. And yeah, these are things that probably just live as VHS rips or recorded movies off of cable by and large right now. So to get those negatives and get the movies out is going to be really neat.
Yeah, it's exciting. And speaking of Vinegar Syndrome, this first full week of January has been their whole subscriber week deal. You can pay however much money. I don't know how much it is exactly because I know I can't afford it, but to be a subscriber and, receive their main titles every month. I feel like every time they add a new sub-label, like this Iconoscope label, like it's not added to the yearly subscription. So I feel like the number of titles they're putting out compared to the number of titles that you actually get as a subscriber is slowly shrinking.
There's a woman on YouTube, Celeste de la Cabra, who every year does this really intense breakdown of the Vinegar Syndrome subscription and goes into like to the cent, like how much it is per title that you'll get based on what they've announced. Because they always say like, oh, in the year ahead we've got 33 titles and how many releases. With Vinegar Syndrome, it always comes down to, do you like the stuff that they put out under the main line? Because it's, for me, can be pretty hit or miss. But then, or how often do you buy not just the sub labels but the partner labels? Because you get the 50% partner label discount if you pay. So the neat thing about her video that she does every year is she really dives deep on like, this is how much if you're buying like a certain number of partner label releases every month. You can almost think of this as like deduct what you save from. I should say I would never do the subscription. It's too much for what you get. But if you think of it as like I'm going to subtract the cost of or the savings from each release from that subscription, you could end up coming out ahead depending on how much you buy from them. And you also get free shipping too, because you get free shipping on everything with with which, as we know, is can be a lot with them. So yeah, it's a lot. But
Yeah, that's true.
they capped it at 2,000, and I think they sold almost all those. So there are a lot of people who are interested in the subscription. But yeah,
Yeah.
But the drops each day have been fun.
I always like, scrolling through their daily deals or whatever. I've been trying to bulk up the number of titles I have from the American Genre Film Archive, which is one of their partner labels. So I've kind of been scrolling through the daily deals, being like, okay, are there going to be any AGFA titles here that I can pick up? There's all that stuff. They announced like some of their main titles for this month. Dario Argento's Phantom of the Opera, which I'm kind of interested in, but I feel like that's definitely getting more into Argento's like late period of stuff that I assume is probably going to be more miss than hit. Or something like Terror Firmer, which is a Troma film that I've kind of had my eye on forever. As I get more into Troma.
Run. Yeah, you went on that Troma run a few months ago. All the Toxic Avenger movies.
Yeah, and because of that, Lloyd Kaufman was my most watched director on Letterboxd for 2025. Yep. Right next to Tom Cruise as my top actor. So I probably should have planned a little bit better if I wanted to share that stuff on social. Yeah,
that's funny.
And then this movie I had never heard of, The Gambler, that you had mentioned in our previous episode from Cinematograph.
Yeah, The Gambler's good. I actually picked up the Imprint out of Australia, put out a Blu-ray that I have. But of course, it being the new one being a Cinematograph 4K, it's like that. Oh man, the upgrade is tempting. But I haven't looked I don't know about the features. We'll see.
I picked up The Gambler as a blind buy as part of these deals, so I'm going to be interested to check it out. I like reading the synopsis of it. It definitely sounded like along the lines of something I would be interested in. I'm a huge fan of the movie Rounders with Matt Damon and Edward Norton, and that I was getting a similar kind of vibe reading the description.
Oh, and I think it's one of the ones that the Safdies definitely name dropped, even just for Uncut Gems. It's definitely, I mean, it feels like Uncut Gems. So yeah, it's good. You'll enjoy it for sure. Awesome. But yeah, then the Iconoscope, that Karloff TV show, I'm very interested in that. So they announced, as part of their Iconoscope, the new sub-label, which focuses on television. It's this TV show, one season of a TV show called The Veil, from 1958, that Boris Karloff was sort of the Rod Serling-style host of this show, and I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, because it never aired.
Right, there you go.
Literally never made its air.
It's got all kinds of interesting people, amazing people were on episodes of this thing, and all 12 episodes are going to be released with this release. So that sounds really cool. See how many. It's the nice thing about the quote unquote the nice thing. It's also kind of a terrible thing that they do is they tell you how many units are left, but they're still over 2,000, so it's not like it's flying off the shelf. So that'll probably be around for a while.
Yeah, Vinegar Syndrome is big on creating scarcity, or the fear of scarcity.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Let's see. Elsewhere, kind of in the physical media world, we've got this. I believe it's Arrow release of Under Siege 4K. Yeah. This is a movie I've never seen, but I feel like I've seen maybe lots of just clips of flying around in the Discord or whatever. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to check this out, but I think it's worth noting that it's getting this nice 4K release.
I caught up with it a couple of years ago. It's a lot of fun. Your mileage may vary on him, but you've got like Tommy Lee Jones just kind of like making a complete meal of what he's doing in that movie. I mean, he's kind of like the reason to see the movie, I would say. And just the sort of the central conceit of Steven Seagal being this cook on a battleship. Of course, that's not all he is, but yeah. And Gary Busey, obviously, also. It's a lot of fun. Colm Meaney from Deep Space Nine is in there as a completely different type of person than what you've seen him doing. It's pretty fun. It's probably the only... And it's an Andrew Davis movie, so he of The Fugitive and The Packet. Yeah. He knew how to direct an action movie. Under Siege is pretty cool. It's the only Seagal movie currently that I'd probably want to run out and buy. So that's a tempting one for sure. Arrow does a great job.
So that is being released January 6th, which is when we're recording this. But in the next week, the week of I believe Tuesday, January 13th. We've got this whole slew of Pink Panther 4Ks being released by Kino Lorber. They're also putting out Babe and Babe Pig in the City in separate 4K editions. Got Evil Dead Rise coming from Arrow in a 4K edition that we discussed a little bit in our previous episode. What are your thoughts on some of these? Do you have a relationship with like the Pink Panther films or the Babe films, perhaps?
I've definitely seen one of the. I mean, my dad loved Peter Sellers, so I think saw one of the Pink Panthers when I was a kid. But believe it or not, both Babes would be first time watches for me. I have not seen either of them.
Same for me.
And I know those are real darlings for people. But I guess whenever I wasn't interested when they came out. But they're George Miller movies, so I'll see them eventually, for sure. And
Yeah,
Evil
maybe
Dead
a future
Rise,
episode of the show.
It might have to be. Maybe I'll rent them and we'll just do a sidebar of like a blind borrow. We could call it the blind borrow bonus episode.
Oh, I love it. Innovating on episode 1. This is great.
Oh yeah. Borrowed from Scarecrow Video, blind borrow. Oh yeah, and then I see you also have listed your Thunderheart. Thunderheart's really interesting because I watched that, and so that's a Val Kilmer film that I caught up with after his passing, and it's a really awesome sort of action thriller.
Yeah, this is another one that I have never seen, so I'm very interested. Maybe not to purchase right now, but in the future.
I definitely recommend catching up with it. And even at the time, I mean, it's set in the Southwest on a Native American reservation, and the dearly departed Graham Greene is the co-star. He's awesome in it. Like you watch it and you're like, why wasn't he the star of like 100 action movies? He's so good in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's shot in the Southwest. It's really gorgeously shot, but the DVD I watched kind of looked awful. Roger Deakins shot it, and the 70mm covered this, so many of the people listening probably already heard them talk about it. But it's as beautiful as they said it was. So the fact that it's getting hopefully a nice restoration from Kino and at least a 4K transfer, it's really, really great that they're doing that.
Yeah, love to see it. I'll probably check it out. I missed that 70mm episode and just have not caught up with it. So yeah, it's definitely on the list.
It's Kino, so they'll be like, unless you're a fiend for their slipcovers, there'll be a sale where it'll be featured sometime in the next few months, because there's always a Kino sale coming or going. So yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah, and then these Pink Panther films, I wish I liked more. Like, I remember my grandfather like having the full VHS collection of the Pink Panther films, and they like lived in this like curio cabinet next to their TV at their house. And so I would always look at those VHS tapes and be like, what is going on with that animated Panther? And then I watched it for the first time, I think on like TCM or something, maybe a couple of years ago. And I was just like, I don't know, like I wasn't thrilled by it. I thought it would be more fun and like maybe a little more manic, maybe more of a farce than I think it turned out to be. So I don't know. I wish I liked them more.
There's a lot of them, so maybe you could dip your toe in with one of them and see how you like it. I think it's about time for us to get into this week's pick. This was Josh's pick for our first episode, Almost Famous. So Josh, why don't you give us a quick rundown of this movie and what it's about?
Yeah, let's get into it. So, like you said, Almost Famous came out in the year 2000. This was directed by Cameron Crowe. It stars Billy Crudup, my beloved Frances McDormand, Kate Hudson, Jason Lee, Patrick Fugit, Zooey Deschanel, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, among a host of others that pop out throughout this film. The logline for Almost Famous, in 1973, 15-year-old William Miller's unabashed love of music and aspiration to become a rock journalist lands him an assignment from Rolling Stone magazine to interview and tour with the up-and-coming band Stillwater. Let's get a little bit of the history that we have with this movie, maybe.
Well, I was 16 when this movie came out, so basically just a little older than the William Miller, who is the Cameron Crowe stand-in in this movie, was when the movie came out. And I mean, I was at the time very much steeping myself in Led Zeppelin. I mean, I was obsessed with Led Zeppelin at the time. Sort of another a corner of my physical media obsession and story was does the phrase BMG Music Club mean anything to you? Or
Is it
Columbia
bad if it
House?
doesn't?
No, it's not. That this was long gone by the time you would have been interested in something. So this was like they would send you CDs. You could get CDs in the mail, and it was a way to buy CDs basically. And I got a big box set of Led Zeppelin, like this beautiful collection of Led Zeppelin albums, or like they sort of repackaged it as sort of like a greatest hits thing. So I was very much steeped in this type of music at the time. I don't think I saw it until a couple of years later, but it was one of the first DVDs that I bought for myself, and I still have it right here. I did a reorg today, and I found the original Almost Famous director's edition, which had the bootleg cut, or untitled as they call it. And I think prior to today, that was the only version that I had seen. And the 4K that I watched, that I think we both watched, has both cuts too. So I did watch the theatrical cut this time. So I mean, it's been with me for a long time. Just the sort of the story and the wonder of being swept up in the world that he gets into really took me away. And just the world building. So it's been a movie that I've loved since the first time I watched it, like well over 20 years ago at this point.
Yeah, that's awesome. This, for me, this has been on my shelf for over a year. I got the 4K that I think it was Paramount released, and I picked it up because, I had heard from so many people that this was, such an influential film in their lives, having lived with it for so long. And what I heard the most from people was like the way that this captured like a very specific time, like in music, and what it felt like to be a fan, and like wanting to like kind of immerse yourself in that music culture. It sat on my shelf for a while, as blind buys do, and then here we are. Started this project, made it my first pick because I know a lot of people love it. So thought we could have a nice lively discussion. You watched the theatrical cut for this one. I watched the bootleg cut, and it's worth noting there's almost 40 minutes in difference between the two. And so the bootleg cut being the only cut that I've ever seen, I think it's going to be hard for me to imagine maybe cutting some of that stuff. We can get into it a little later, but just to kind of lay out at the beginning of our discussion of this, that we've watched two different cuts, and you have some experience with both. I think is going to be important to this discussion.
Yeah, and honestly, after watching I watched the theatrical cut. It's still a really good movie. I don't think I'll ever watch it again. The bootleg cut is to me it feels like a completely different movie. I mean, it's sort of the difference between like I guess more story driven, plot driven version of this movie versus like the ultimate hangout movie. This kid into this like intoxicating world of adults, and him searching for acceptance and meeting all these people, and you get to know all these characters so much more and learn more about what they're about. And these like some of the changes are just like a little bit more tacked on either end of a scene with the character, but it just fleshes them out and makes them feel so much more real. But there are definitely some longer scenes that are cut entirely, like the radio station scene isn't there at all. They only mention it.
The scene where they cuss on air while the jockey's like too high to.
Who's Kyle? Yeah, well, that's Kyle Gass. That's Kyle Gass from Tenacious D. That's who that is. Yes, that whole thing is gone, which I understand because it's longer, but that's the kind of thing that sort of shows you the relationship that this band has with each other. That is like sort of the fun stuff that brought them together, where you can imagine that they, like it's sort of a flash of the old fun. Whereas when we meet up with them, they're sort of like embittered by, they're kind of on the verge of success, but the Billy Crudup character, the guitarist, has the mystique and is the guy who is maybe the most talented of them. So it really kind of focuses more on those nuts and bolts story parts, even though the movie is still 2 hours long. So it still runs for a while, but I think you just lose a lot from all these little scenes. And there's some like the one of the Band-Aids as the women who follow the Kate Hudson sort of as the leader of this group called the Band-Aids, that are like, groupies, young women who are following these bands around. You just get more time with all of them. They feel more like real people, especially like Anna Paquin's one of them. She has like one line or two lines in the in the theatrical cut, but you get a little bit more with her. She feels like a real person. And I mean, this is one of my favorite Frances McDormand performances, easily, maybe my favorite. Certainly outside of a Coen movie. But the whole thing with the Christmas, the Christmas sign where the guy at the beginning is like painting the sign, and she kind of terrorizes him by telling him that Xmas is not a word.
Yeah.
That's not in it. So like there's just a lot of character details that sort of tell you who these people are that's cut out, and it just feels much more bare bones. In a way that, I mean, having seen both was deeply kind of unsatisfying to me. So
Yeah.
the longer one, it's shaggier, but in a good way that feels kind of cozy to me, even though it's like, it still runs like 2 hours and 40 minutes, the longer cut, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, for me, it flew by. I was just so invested in this story. I think just like overall like big picture thoughts of what I thought about this movie. I've just like I dig this movie. It is so awesome, and I wish like I had it in my life before now, because now I feel like I know what everyone's talking about. And the performances, like you mentioned, Frances McDormand in this is just lights out good. She nails the mother who like doesn't want to let her kids go. She kind of drove her daughter away, and so is now trying to kind of maybe make up for it here, but is also like still so worried about, you know, her son's well-being and everything. I'm so attached to her performance in Fargo as like my number one performance for her, but I think this is up there as like a number two.
But yeah, she's not like a sort of very stereotypical terrible mom. She's like a great mom. Like many moms, she still kind of drives her kids crazy, but they both sort of come around to see how good and important it is to have like that family unit. Zooey Deschanel plays William's sister, and her other kid who runs off to be a stewardess in the opening scenes of the movie. But before she leaves, she sort of gifts William with these sort of like these totemic records, like her record collection that is sort of his gateway to this world, and sets him on what will be his great adventure several years later.
Yeah, what struck me is the fact that like William's mom still drives him to the Black Sabbath concert, and still is like letting him go out there and like try to achieve his dreams. And like she's definitely not like 100% cool with it. It makes me wonder what kind of character work that maybe Cameron and Frances did, because I know a lot of this is based on, you know, his real life experience. It's kind of like a semi-autobiographical movie or whatever. But I'm kind of like, what did Cameron see growing up, maybe in his own parents, that he kind of passed on to Frances, and that she could kind of pick up on in this performance, that makes this such like a well-rounded mother depiction. I thought she did an excellent job. Just fantastic. And she has some of the like best lines in the movie, like when they're in the car at the beginning and William's real age is getting revealed. Zooey Deschanel's character says like that everyone calls him a narc, and she's like, a narc? What is that? What is a narc? And she explains it, and then she's like, oh, a narc? What's wrong with that? That made me laugh so hard. She has some fantastic one-liners in this movie.
Yeah, and it's still even in the shorter cut, that still all comes through. But again, it's just like, you know, with characters this good, like the thought of, and they didn't put everything in there, so because the DVD and the Blu-ray or the 4K both have some scenes that aren't even in the theatrical or the extended cut, but I feel like his instincts were right with all the stuff that he had in the extended cut, because it just like, yeah, it rounds out these characters. I mean, especially now, the thought of any Philip Seymour Hoffman footage ending up on the cutting room floor of any movie is heartbreaking. But he's so good so he plays Lester Bangs, who was a real like editor for Cream, this sort of legendary rock magazine, and some people say he was like the greatest rock critic in the history of American rock music journalism. The Blu-ray does have like a shortened interview with Lester Bangs, and the way that Philip Seymour Hoffman just sort of nailed that character, but also found a way to make it this sort of very sweet mentor father figure for William was just great. And you know, it's one of my favorite Hoffman performances in a career full of just amazing ones. He's so good in this.
Yeah, his Lester Bangs character is like he's very like pretentious in his opinions, but it's weird that his opinion is basically, rock has always been dumb and when it stops being dumb is when it stops being great. Having this, opinion of something that you hold in such high regard, but also acknowledging that it's just a dumb thing, that people like and are so passionate about is something that he really gets across.
Yeah, and sort of leads to the kind of conflict of the movie later is that William Miller is like following this band around that's up and coming, and what's your journalistic duty to sort of make this band seem interesting but not kind of prostrate yourself to them for access. And that becomes the driving conflict is him wanting to get this interview. I got to get the interview with Russell to kind of get at the heart of what makes this band tick and find out what the conflicts are. But since he's riding around a tour bus with them, he gets to see them at their, their sort of their highest and also their lowest and their sort of most venal and petty. So yeah, sort of that. And he's always got Lester's words in his ear about like, don't get too close. Don't let me become your friends. The minute they become your friends, that's when you've sort of lost in a way. And they even refer to him as the enemy, kind of jokingly.
Yeah. What really struck me is like the number of times Lester Bangs says to William, like, you're not cool. You're not cool. Like, I know you're not cool just because you're not. And like the number one thing, especially Jason Lee's character is concerned with is looking cool. And being like, why is it so hard to make us look cool is like literally his whole thing. So kind of seeing that dynamic of like a quote unquote true rock and roll fan who doesn't care about the cool factor, but knowing that there are the people who have also kind of latched on to this rock and roll phase, even when like Lester says like that you missed it, like rock and roll is basically dying, but this band is trying to still make it big, and their biggest concern is being cool.
Yeah, and then his sort of, I mean, we got to talk about Kate Hudson and the Band-Aids. I mean, that they sort of embody that kind of tension too, because their whole thing is like, we don't have sex with these guys. We're here for the music. It's about the music. But then as you go along, you realize it's more complicated than that. So it is about sort of this like dance between like art and celebrity and sex and all the sort of like intoxicating stew that is made between those things.
Yeah. Should we talk about the I guess they're not kids necessarily, but Patrick Fugit and Kate Hudson, like the younger stars of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of is like the movie that kind of makes the case. I mean, I've seen passingly few probably Kate Hudson movies. I've enjoyed some of her more recent work, and I want to see Song Sung Blue, the one that just came out, where it's like the Neil Diamond tribute movie. But I mean, she's so good in this, and I don't know if this was her first. I can't remember what else she might have been in before this, but it sort of dropped right at that sort of when the Manic Pixie Dream Girl was sort of like, I feel like that's kind of a fraught term and has been thrown around a little too much and kind of used to disparage some really great performances.
Yeah.
But I feel like she rises above that sort of label in this movie, especially in the uncut, the more you learn about her and kind of, her history with Russell and what she wants to aspirations she might have beyond just being a person who follows bands around, and also the ways that she's mistreated. Yeah, I think it's a really great performance.
I think she's at her best in this movie when she is the main focus of the room and she's kind of, showboating, for the other Band-Aids and like kind of bringing everybody together. And I think she's also really, really good at like when the cracks start showing, like when she isn't able to like even make eye contact with Russell at a dinner that his girlfriend is at, or when like William reveals to her that like they basically sold the Band-Aids to another band for $50 and like a 6-pack. She breaks in such small ways, and it's mostly just like on her face, and then she goes right back into this like flowy arm movement, like showing that it doesn't, it doesn't phase her, but you can tell it really does.
Mm-hmm.
She's just great at that.
Yeah. And if there is one criticism I have of the movie, especially now kind of revisiting it for the first time in a long time and as an adult, it's and after sort of reckoning with my own sort of love of, bands like Led Zeppelin and what the reality for young women and really in many cases girls that were swept up with bands like this. In real life, those guys did a lot of really awful and criminal things in some cases.
Yeah.
And you can tell this is Cameron Crowe. I mean, this was his story. He lived this and he was himself a kid. So he might almost be too close to render a truly sort of critical telling of this type of tale. But I do feel like the Kate Hudson, like that the Penny Lane character is human enough, and you can see the real harm that was done to her, to kind of make the movie a bit of an indictment about how these bands operated. It's still very much a love letter to the time and the music and all that stuff. The criticism is there, and the ways in which they sort of did wrong and could do better are there for sure too.
Something that I'm curious about in this movie, kind of going off of, William is established as being 15 for most of this movie. It turns out, his mom had been kind of flubbing his age by about a year or so, even after the fact that he had, skipped a grade and was already a year younger than everyone else. For the whole movie, I was trying to get like a good read on like how old Penny Lane is supposed to be. Even like when she has her birthday and there's like the cake that says age unknown or whatever. I thought that was a great detail, but I'm like, okay, yeah, they don't even know. And she's not divulging any personal information or anything like that.
Well, and she was based on a real person, or who Cameron Crowe knew and consulted for the movie, and I think she sort of has been able to. I forget her name escapes me, but I think the answer is young for sure. Probably started off too young, but at the time when we catch up with her in the movie, at least I think she's in like her early 20s. I think even Lester Bangs at this time was like 25. He would have been like 25 years old. I mean, obviously Philip Seymour Hoffman was older than that.
Yeah, I was like, he's supposed to be in his 20s? Oh.
He was like in his mid to late 20s, I think, in real life in 1973.
And then we've got Patrick Fugit, who plays William. And I was watching some of the new bonus features on the 4K that were recorded, I think during COVID, because Cameron Crowe is just like sitting in his backyard, like talking into a laptop screen or whatever. But they basically said that they found Patrick like pretty late in the casting process, and he was just a kid from Utah. Cameron saw his tape and felt that he really like embodied like who he was at the time. And like as far as this being a performance by like an unknown, basically, it's kind of unbelievable that this kid had never acted before.
I think I can believe it, but in a way that works for the character, because he is supposed to be very much like this outsider, and he's meant to be awkward, and he is, because he's a 15-year-old kid in this like adult world, and he has the very funny scenes where he drops his voice to talk to the people at Rolling Stone. So he's very much in a sort of like fake it till you make it sort of situation. So his sort of inherent awkwardness, I think, works in this case for sure. But yeah, he's a great sort of stand-in for. I mean, when I saw it as a kid, I was like, "Yep, that's pretty awesome."
Yeah,
wouldn't that be a dream? But then, of course, it's like it's not all it's cracked up to be. But you can see why it's such a alluring world to enter.
Yeah, he has like some of the best like listening and watching faces that I've seen from a kid performer, because the camera is so like close on him during scenes where he's not even talking and he's just watching the band and the Band-Aids kind of like move around in their space and interact with each other and get on each other's nerves and all of that. And it's literally just him, watching, like, quote unquote, taking notes with his eyes. And that line like really stuck out to me as a great way to describe like his face while listening is not just like a passive, no emotion face. Like you can tell he's picking up on things that are being said. He's shifting focus and like really trying to like take mental notes on stuff that he wants to remember, that kind of thing. So I think it's just like a fantastic, like even facial performance. Something that I did kind of bump up on though is in the scenes where he has to get like really emotional or even like yell, I feel like is where he kind of stumbles a little bit in his performance. Like that, him having to do that doesn't necessarily feel the most natural. And I feel like that's maybe the biggest criticism I have of the film.
Yeah, it is. It does feel a little forced at times, but also, but again, I think it sort of makes his character kind of, we're almost seeing him from the perspective of the older characters he's with on the tour, of like, up, yep, he's a kid. This is a kid who's trying to act up a bit or like express outrage, and he just sort of is made to seem silly. So I think some of that is intended, but like it's intended to come across that way. But yeah, those are times where it felt the performance felt a little forced, perhaps. But for me, ultimately, I'm willing to give it a pass for what the character is and the situation he's in. And I think in one of those is like right after he loses his virginity, one night when they're in a really boring city and the Band-Aids decide to
Yeah.
deflower Opie. Opie's gonna die, and that was right after that was one of his outbursts. So I think that he's supposed to seem a little ridiculous there, but I agree. It's some of those scenes did feel a little forced at times. Did you watch the extras with Peter Frampton? Peter Frampton, they put the guys in the band through rock and roll school, so teaching them like sort of pass off the idea that he was like a rock god, because he had been playing guitar for like 2 weeks before they started filming. So that was a really cool extra, I thought, because Peter Frampton and Nancy Wilson put him through like a rock boot camp, which was kind of fun to see little snippets of that.
Yeah, I think both Billy Crudup and Jason Lee do like a really good job of like creating this facsimile of a band like at the time. And Jason Lee specifically, like with the long hair and like that kind of slouch that he has and like the way he's dressing, I thought was like spot on.
Jeff Beebe, he's wearing a T-shirt of himself at one point in the Jeff Beebe band. And again, I think this movie makes the case for a lot of people. Like it makes the case for, I'm not the biggest like View Askew-averse fan, so some of the Kevin Smith, Jason Lee things they kind of grate on me a lot, but I love him in this movie.
Is it bad if the first way that I knew of Jason Lee was by watching the movie Underdog? I think a Disney film that came out in like 2010, maybe? Do you know about this?
No, I don't.
No?
But
okay.
That was sort of after the time when I would have been watching those types of Disney movies, probably.
Well, it was in that weird...
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
No, it was in that weird Disney era of like they were making live action movies and they were like slightly edgier than some of their like 90s fare or whatever. So it's like you're getting your National Treasures, you're getting your like Sorcerer's Apprentices and whatnot. But yeah,
I have not seen this. Nope, I haven't seen it.
Oh, I can only imagine if we do an episode of that. I could go hours on Underdog. I'm not even kidding. But that was my first introduction to Jason Lee, and I thought I'd drop that lure here on the first episode of our podcast.
His sort of inherent smarminess kind of works really well, but he's still kind of a really endearing character. And again, I think you get more of that in the extended cut, because you see some of these more just in between times when they're just hanging out and the sort of rapport that they have with each other. It just really evokes a place and a time that is lost, and it's shot in this sort of almost sun-kissed, tone at times. And you're like, man, yeah, this looks like driving around on a bus with a rock band. Like,
yeah, something I heard on the latest Big Picture episode discussing Marty Supreme was that Marty Supreme feels like a movie that is like pulling from like your grandparents' photo album. Like you're seeing their picture when they're young, and you're like, what was going on in those pictures? And I get the same vibe from Almost Famous, which is like,
yes,
yeah, you're watching this, like this is someone's, relatives, like older relatives, and you're looking back at young pictures of them, like thriving, like just having the best time of their life, and being like, yeah, what was going on in the background of these pictures? And that's exactly the vibe I get from this movie.
Well, and you even see them. I mean, they take Polaroids on the bus, and he's looking through pictures that he took, and it just has such a lived in feel. And I'm sure, I mean, I have to imagine this was a fun set to be on. They probably must have had a great time. I hope it sure seemed that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Hearing Kate Hudson talk about in the bonus features, like sometimes she'll just get like really sad and her therapist will be like, you want to get back on the bus, don't you? Like the bus from Almost Famous. And I was like, that's how you know that these people had just like the time of their life making this. Like even 25 years later, they can look back on it and be like, yeah, I want to go back there.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, like I'm not the most familiar with Kate Hudson beyond, you know, like I've seen like Bride Wars. I think she's in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Like she did Glass Onion. But I mean, she's just fantastic in this movie. And I really need to seek out more stuff that she's done.
Yeah. For me, it's literally this and Glass Onion. And I guess she was in Home Alone too. Who knew? She must have been like a child on the street or something like that. Anything else? Any other closing thoughts on Almost Famous, Josh?
Let's see here. I was trying to take notes during the movie, like in a notebook, so that I could like stay off my phone and like be focused and stuff. And so I'm kind of like trying to go back and see some of the stuff that I had written and make a little bit more sense out of it. The number of like cameos of people that are well known now that are in this movie kind of blew my mind. I mean, the obvious one is Jimmy Fallon, like unrecognizable Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, talk about making the case for someone, because if all you saw was this, you'd be like, that Jimmy Fallon, huh?
Yeah, I wonder what he's going to go on to do. But yeah,
very
he's
different.
great.
Mark Maron, he's the promoter, the angry promoter, who I didn't realize until, I mean, I think just when I watched it the other day, because he doesn't have facial hair, he's like this wiry, angry man.
Yeah,
it's now, but he doesn't look anything like himself.
Is that scene in the theatrical cut where Russell gets electrocuted?
Yep, that's in there, but they sort of trim it a little bit. But he's in there. Jay Baruchel is the person who I forgot about, was in, and he plays I mean, he must be like, he has to be a teenager in this movie. He's like the obsessed Led Zeppelin fan.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my
Jay
gosh.
Baruchel. Yep.
Amazing.
He's great. He's only in it for a couple scenes. He makes an impression, and then he's gone on to do great things. Yeah. No, it's packed full of fun little appearances. Yep.
Rainn Wilson as one of the Rolling Stone editors. Got Eric Stonestreet, Modern Family, as the hotel clerk who is scared of his mom on the phone, of William's mom. I was going to say Polly Perrette as the DJ. She plays Abby on NCIS, and I definitely had an NCIS phase, so I clocked her immediately.
Oh, and I was going to say, well, he doesn't say anything, but Mitch Hedberg is one of the roadies. Sadly, a comedian who passed away years ago. A very sort of like incredibly deadpan comedian. You'll have to go down a YouTube rabbit hole of his stuff. One of his jokes is like, it's not all that bad when an escalator breaks because it just becomes stairs. Lots of like deadpan jokes like that. He would just go on a run of them and just say these jokes. But he died. Yes. So Mitch Hedberg, look into him. He's just at the table at the poker game. He's there. You wouldn't even clock him probably, but I saw him in the cast, and he's there.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's the sign of like great casting in a movie, is when you're finding like all of these interesting faces who can do like, like real like character bits.
Yeah, and of course the Kyle Gass is the DJ, who they cut him out entirely, which is crazy. But I understand. Again, it's a long scene, but so funny that. In the radio station.
So I had two final like notes on the movie. At the outset of the plane scene at the end, where all of their like secret like unsaid things come out. As soon as it started, I was like, is this how this is going to go? Where like this is going to kind of get like dragged out, and like they're going to say things that they regret and they get saved. And so I was kind of like, I wasn't really, really like locked into the movie all the way up till that moment. And I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about like this being the way things come out. But like the way that scene just like escalates past any point of what I would have expected for that scene to go, kind of culminating in the drummer being like, and I'm gay, was just like phenomenal. Like totally won me back. Just fantastic writing in that scene.
Well, and I also kind of like, thinking back on it, like they end up on the plane because they sort of like, were turning away from their roots as like they're like Doris is the heart of this band, the Doris the Bus, and
Yeah.
like them choosing to take the sort of easy way of extending this tour, taking the extra money from these this big management or whatever, and so it to me it's kind of like it was sort of cliched, but I kind of liked how it was like it was a consequence of them aiming for this stardom and money and fame instead of
Yeah.
sticking to what it's all really about, the friendship and the music and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean, it really is always music that brings them back together. Like even when they're like angry at each other in the bus, I think they start singing Tiny Dancer and they're
Tiny
just all
Dancer.
like back
Yep.
into it. Yeah. Really great. And then the last note that I had was kind of like in real time being like out on the ending being that William gets his story shot down by fact checkers and then getting back in when you realize that Russell like called them back and was like, yeah, all this was real. But like in the moment I was like in what world does a fact checker just take like a celebrity's word as gold, especially when their job is to fact check stuff that their writer, who should be capable of being objective, has written. I thought that was strange, but then they end up backtracking and he ends up getting the story published anyway. That didn't ring true for me, like in the moment, I guess.
Yeah, I would like. I've never read any of Cameron Crowe's journalism for Rolling Stone, and I kind of wish I had for this, just to kind of see what, because you sort of get some shades of the stuff that he wrote,
Yeah.
in the movie. But it would be interesting to see like what did the 16, 17, 18-year-old kid actually write? Was he that fierce sort of, I'm going to tell it like it is, make, kind of a journalism character? Sometime in the future, I'll have to seek that out and find it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our discussion of the movie itself. Maybe we can spend just a couple minutes on like the physical release that we watched. I know we both watched the 4K that has come out recently. What did you think about the presentation?
Yeah, it's it's a studio release. I love that they sort of have on the special features, they've divided it into greatest hits, and I forget what the other one was, like new cuts or something like that. So it actually is all of the old stuff from the DVD that I have. So it's always nice when they port over the old stuff, but they also included like a new intro and documentary, quote unquote, with Cameron Crowe. I didn't watch all of that, but I think like the rock school thing was new. And they have like some extended performance footage that they shot with Stillwater, the band. So I think it's pretty cool. It kind of rounds out the presentation of this as like, here's this treasure trove of stuff from this band that sort of existed, but not really. One thing that it doesn't have that the DVD had, and a reason why I'll hold on to this, just because it's like a cherished thing, but this came with a CD of Stillwater's music with 6 tracks on it.
Oh, awesome.
The old DVD. So I'm definitely hanging on to that. And yeah, I think even, when you have Nancy Wilson and Peter Frampton writing and Stone Gossard from Pearl Jam, you're going to come up with a pretty good, that can be a downfall for these movies, like when they predict when they depict this is a great band or this is a great novel, but it's like you gotta kind of nail it if you're gonna do that. But I think this is pretty good. It feels like music of the time, so it's cool to have some of those extended performances on the Blu-ray. I think to kind of round out the presentation of this world is really neat.
It's interesting that DVD came with a CD of the band's music, because I feel like we only get maybe 2 or 3 like actual songs in the movie being played.
Yeah,
so
like
if they
3 of
wrote
them, I
more,
think.
there's more to discover there.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure the soundtrack CD that they released probably had at least Fever Dog, the big single, and like maybe something else. But it's a fun extra. I know more labels are doing that. Like Severin definitely does that a lot. Includes like soundtrack CDs as extras. But I mean, yeah, this was like just a DreamWorks DVD from back in the day. So I feel like the studio releases have kind of gone downhill from the DVD heyday a bit, but I think this is pretty good for a studio release. And the fact that it has both cuts is really good, because again, like, it's kind of amazing that it's as heralded a movie as it is now, because I feel like it's a bit rushed, honestly, from the theatrical cut. Like, it doesn't feel complete to me, like these characters don't, as I've said. So I'm glad that that both of the cuts are on there. I think that's great for anybody who buys this, which I would recommend. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's great that both cuts are on 4K and not just the theatrical. They still took the time to like do the restoration of the director's cut in 4K. I think that's great. Yeah, so this is about the time of the show where we decide whether this blind buy is a keeper. So this is for me to decide, and I would absolutely say that Almost Famous is a keeper. It's going back on my shelf where it belongs. I think I had just an absolute blast, like, watching this movie, like, getting to live in this world for 2.5 hours and just, like, laughing, getting emotional, getting to know and love these characters and, like, be with them as they grow and make mistakes. Just so much fun.
Yeah, that's one of those lines. I mean, there's a lot of lines that I internalized from this movie, like whether it's all happening. But when I think at one point Penny says, like, and if you ever get sad, just go to the record store and visit your friends.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like that thankfully is still in the theatrical, but that's kind of like what it is with these things we collect. Go back and visit your old friends. Right there on the shelf. Yeah, no, it's a keeper for me also, and I'm keeping my old DVD. I don't tend to keep my DVDs if I upgrade, but this one, I mean, just because it's a sentimental favorite, and it does have that CD is a fun sort of relic of times past for me. And yeah, keeper for me too.
Awesome. Well, we don't have any listener feedback this week since this is episode 1, but if anyone out there does want to shoot us an email or voice memo or anything like that, you can reach us at blindbuyspod@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to go over any of that feedback on air in future episodes. Now's about the time where we pick our next episode. And Jesse, it's your pick. What blind buy are you going to be picking for next episode?
My first pick is going to be, this was one of Criterion's sort of like launch titles for when they first did 4Ks. And it is Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger's The Red Shoes, which is like not just a blind buy, but a really big blind spot for someone who watches as many movies as I do. But this was one that for me, once I sort of got into movies, I wanted to wait for like the best version of it I could see. If it wasn't going to be in a theater on a huge screen, I wanted it to look really good. So I have this 4K of The Red Shoes, which is this sumptuous movie about art and dance and music. We're going to watch it. And I'm excited to knock it off the list and finally see it and talk about it next time.
Yeah, I'm so excited that this is your next pick. This is one that I've seen. I watched for the first time last year on this 4K edition, so I'm going to get to break it out again and watch it one more time. Great movie. Cannot wait to discuss it.
And we're looking to release new episodes every 2 weeks, so we will see you next time for The Red Shoes. Bye.
See you next time.